Hello, everyone, and welcome back to today's segment of At the Table with Yeshua. Today is Sunday, May 16th. I do apologize about the interruption with the last video. I thought I could continue on and get everything in one video, but obviously, because of memory's sake, I couldn't. So I just wanted to piggyback off of basically where I left off in the last video. And when you get a chance, please tune into it, as well as tune into some of the others if you haven't seen it, so that way you can be in the know as to what Yeshua is doing in these last days. So again, we are talking about Abraham, the descendants of Abraham. We are talking about the beginnings of Judaism, basically how it came about, and Yahweh's plans for the Jewish people and the state of Israel. As we were talking about in the last video, we were talking about Abraham. So basically what we're touching on to start off, Islam through Ishmael, who was Abraham's other son, that he had by Hagar, who was his wife Sarah's servant. And this is what the Lord was dealing with me about. He said, Islam through Ishmael was birthed out of hurt and anger against me and his father. And what the Lord is saying is that because of how things went down between Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar, Ishmael was directly impacted. As you all know, the tension that was growing between Hagar and Sarah, at that point in time, Sarah, after she had Isaac, decided that she had had enough of Hagar, and I guess of her attitude, allegedly. And so she told Abraham basically to send her and Ishmael away. And we know they went off into the wilderness. We heard a little bit about that, but not much after that. And it always kind of struck me as odd, that here it is, a man is going to send his son into the wilderness based off of what his wife wanted. What about, and I've always just felt some kind of way about that. I mean, you're going to turn your son away, someone who was innocent, someone who had nothing to do with what transpired between you and his mother and his wife and his other family. He had nothing to do with it whatsoever. At the end of the day, he was his father's son, and he should have been entitled to the same comforts and the same lifestyle that Isaac was entitled to. And I know that if I pick that up, I can only imagine what Ishmael was going through growing up. I can only imagine the type of abandonment he felt, the type of hurt that he felt, knowing that his father turned him away just because of his stepmother, basically. I can only imagine how he felt. And so the Lord said, Islam through Ishmael was birthed out of hurt and anger against me and his father. And when the Lord is saying me, he's talking about himself. Yahweh is talking about himself. So Ishmael, basically, the movement of Islam started through Ishmael, and it was birthed out of hurt and anger towards Yahweh and his father Abraham. The Lord was saying that Ishmael's mother, Hagar, planted a seed of bitterness inside of him to rebel. This is what the Lord was saying. And when I was thinking on how Abraham had turned Ishmael and his mother away, Yahweh said, it was not my will. So it was not Yahweh's will for Abraham to turn Ishmael and Hagar away. not Yahweh's will. It is not ever Yahweh's will for a man to turn his back on his son. Now, Yahweh said it was not my will. He said Abraham should have listened. He said there would be no pain between them. And when he's saying them, he's referencing the descendants of Abraham, for those that chose to follow the Islamic movement and for those that chose to follow Judaism, the movement of Judaism. There would be no pain between them, between those two different movements, between those two different nations. Had Abraham not turned Ishmael away, had Abraham not turned Ishmael away, because that movement, that Islamic movement, was birthed out of bitterness and anger and hurt towards Abraham and towards Yahweh. This is what the Lord was telling me. For those of you that want to debate and you want to say it was because of this or because of that, you can debate it. You can debate it to yourself, because I'm not going to debate it with you. So Yahweh said there would be no pain between them. Had that not happened, had Abraham listened to what Yahweh was telling him to do, because obviously Yahweh was telling Abraham not to turn his son away in spite of what Sarah wanted him to do. Abraham listened to his wife and her wishes regarding that whole matter, instead of thinking about the impact that would have had on his son and the nation that came from him. But because he did not listen to Yahweh, because he was disobedient, this is what happened as a result of that. And as you can see, the tensions have not ceased between those two nations, between Ishmael's descendants and Isaac's descendants. Because it is deeper than land, y'all. It is deeper than that. I'm sorry. I have to let it out the way that I feel it. And I've always felt strongly about this particular story. It was to me, it was always something that I could always tell there was more to it than what was said in the Bible. You know, the Bible touches on the perimeters of the storyline. In some cases, it doesn't go full into depth. So we just get a portion of what the story was. We don't get the untold version. You know, that's information that you have to seek Yahweh for. So, to reiterate, Ishmael and Isaac's descendants, animosity was birthed out of bitterness and hurt. Yahweh says they are to stop fighting and come together to serve me. So those of you descendants of Ishmael and those of you descendants of Isaac are to come together and serve Yahweh, Abba, not Allah, not Muhammad. You are to serve Yahweh, Jesus, Yeshua, the one true God. You are to serve him. Yahweh was letting me know that the descendants of Isaac are supposed to teach the descendants of Ishmael how to serve me. That's what Yahweh was saying. He said on one accord. He said, my will, as in this is his will. And I asked him, I said, so that land belongs to both of them? And Yahweh said, birthright. So it is a birthright. Israel is a birthright to both Ishmael's descendants and Isaac's descendants, because they all are descendants of Abraham. No matter color or creed, they are all descendants of Abraham. It is a birthright to both nations. To both nations. Now, granted, both nations are to come together under one God, and that is the one true God, Yahweh, Yeshua. And Yahweh says this. He says, if they obey me, they can share. If they obey Yahweh in his will and his instructions, they can share in that land. Come together peaceably. Stop the fighting. He said they share the same blood. And Yahweh said, Yeshua said, the same blood that runs through my veins. This is what Yeshua said. The same blood that runs through his veins. Because as we know, Yahweh Yeshua is of Jewish descent. And I said, okay, Abba. So, and I was just asking him, and again, this is just my dialogue with Yahweh. This is my dialogue with Yeshua. And I also refer to him as Abba, which means father. So if you hear me talking about Yahweh, Yeshua, Abba, these are the names that I call God. Okay? These are traditionally the Hebraic names of God. So these are the names that I'm getting accustomed to calling him. I grown up all my life knowing him as Jesus. And then later on, I heard different ones calling him Yeshua. And then Yahweh. So I'm coming around. And I asked him, I said, okay, Abba, so how did you become Jewish? And this is what he said. This is what he said. He said, I chose a Jewish family. He said, their ways honored me and pleased me. They were obedient. So Yahweh became Jewish because he chose a family. He saw a family on this very earth whose ways honored him and pleased him, and they were obedient to his word. So the Lord went on to deal with me about the start of Judaism. He said Judaism started with Abraham. He said his ways pleased me. He kept my commands. And I asked him, I said, but Abba, how did he know what your commands were? He said he listened. He said, I dealt with him, and that started a movement, Judaism. And then I was asking him about the ethnicity portion of being Jewish. Because as you know, being Jewish is not just a religion. It's a heritage. So, basically, the ethnicity of being Jewish came about through Abraham. Abba said he birthed a nation and they followed me. He said their practices pleased me overall. They pleased Yahweh in their practices. He said Hagar and Ishmael didn't know my ways and were deceived by the enemy. And that birthed the nation of Islam. And I asked Abba, I said, is that why they are so angry, Abba? And he said, they were cheated and still are. So the nation, Ishmael's descendants were cheated. They were cheated out of the birthright from their ancestor Abraham. They were cheated out of the birthright, out of the land, out of the basically out of everything that pertains to that birthright, every blessing that they were entitled to receive by birth, just by it being their birthright. They were cheated, and Yahweh says they still are. They're still being cheated out of it. That is the reason why the tensions are so high over there in Israel. And I was telling Abba, I said, I knew it was something deeper than just land. And Abba said, their promise. So they're being cheated out of their promise. And that is why tensions are so high in Israel between the two nations. And I went on to state, Lord, I said, that's pitiful. And Abba said, it's heartbreaking. He said, I'm not pleased. And then when it came to referencing Israel to that nation of Islam, to Ishmael's descendants, Abba said, I'm sorry, y'all. Abba said, teach them. Teach them my ways. He said, share in the land under me. Abba said, my descendants. So I want to encourage to my Jewish brothers and sisters. This next chapter starts with y'all. It starts with praying. We cannot pray for peace in Israel until these issues are ironed out. These issues have been long overlooked. These issues have been swept under the rug for years, for far too long. And they have been ignored. And so oftentimes when the world is looking at Israel, they're seeing two nations battle over this land. But really, it's deeper than that. It's deeper than that. The descendants of Ishmael and the descendants of Isaac are battling it out as they always have been. They both share in that birthright. They both share in the promises that Yahweh gave to Abraham, the covenant that Yahweh made with Abraham, and the blessings that come with it. However, they both have to be obedient to Yahweh's word. They both have to serve Yahweh. They both do. And Israel, this is a charge to you to teach your family, because you all are family, regardless of if you want to admit to it or not. You are family. It is up to you to teach your fellow family members, all of those that share in the same lineage. Basically, all are cousins. Stop treating them as if they are not entitled to the same promises that you are. Now, that being said, to the descendants of Ishmael, you have to serve Yahweh in order. You have to give your life over to him and serve him wholeheartedly in order to claim your inheritance. And Israel, once they do, it is up to you to welcome them with open arms. It is time out for fighting over this land. Yahweh gave it to the both of you to share in it, so long as you both come to him and you both serve him and you love one another. Stop all of this fighting. Stop all of this strife. You all are cousins. You are family. You're supposed to share in the land. And to those of you that want to argue and debate and fuss and carry on, you're not going to do it with me. If you want clarity, you go to the Father. You want understanding, you go to the Father. You have questions, you go to the Father. Don't come to me. I am not the one. I will shut an argument down in a nanosecond. Do you want to try it? All I'm saying, and all Yahweh is saying, is that it's time out for arguing. It is time out for fighting. It is time out for going back and forth. Because when Yahweh comes back to get us, are you going? That's the question that you really need to ask yourself. Are you going? Now, there are those Jewish people of that Jewish sect that don't believe in Yeshua, Jesus, being the Son of God, being God in human form when he came down here and he gave his life for us and he died for our sins on the cross and he rose again. There's a sect of you that don't believe in that. You believe Jesus to just be a prophet. He was not that. And if you think that I'm lying, you think that the Bible was lying, you think that God is lying when he said that, then you wait till Judgment Day and find out. I really don't have time to argue with people. Yahweh doesn't have time to argue with people. He's telling you what it is. You can either accept it or you can go against it. But guarantee this, if you go against it, then you will be subject to God's judgment. And I don't think you want to be in on that. I can't sugarcoat it. I can't nice it up and pretty it up and wrap a bow around it. The truth is what it is. Raw and unfiltered. And you can take it or not. The choice is yours. You don't like what I'm saying? You don't have to watch the rest of this video. You don't have to share it. That's up to you. I've done what I was supposed to do, which was deliver the message. I'm supposed to deliver the message. When we are praying for Israel, we are supposed to pray for peace, yes. We're supposed to pray for love. Because at the end of the day, this was something that was birthed, the animosity was birthed out of anger, bitterness, hurt. And God's love is the only thing that can cover it all. God bless you, baby. God's love is the only thing that can cover it all. And I don't mean cover it up, meaning just sweep this stuff up under the rug. The way that I'm seeing Yahweh move in these last days, he is tearing off band-aids of wounds that have been covered for so long. He is the perfect surgeon. Okay? So for these areas that were so sensitive and people tiptoed and danced around and everything, it's time out for that. Yahweh is taking off the covers off a lot of these things so that we can really see what's going on. So we can really be in the know as to what's going on and what we need to pray about, what we need to pray against. So for my Christian brothers and sisters, please be on watch, be on guard. Let's be in prayer. Let's join in prayer for God's will to take place in New York, in Israel, and around this world. We need Yahweh like never before. The truth has been revealed. The truth has been revealed. And there's more to come. This isn't the only thing. You know, it's time out for all the lies, for all the things that have been covered up through the years. No healing comes from things being covered up. No healing. I can only imagine what Ishmael went through. I can only imagine being turned out into the world. Your own father turns his back on you because of what his wife wanted. And out of that hurt and anger and bitterness, it birthed a nation. And if y'all don't believe me, look at the news, y'all. Let me tell you something. That animosity is deeper than any parcel of land. That's a hurt that is behind that. That is anger that is behind that. Y'all ever stop to wonder why there is so much strife and beef? I mean, if I'm going to take it, with my ebonics, so to speak, beef between them, strife, between those two nations is hurt. Hurt was the driving factor. Anger was the driving factor. Bitterness was the driving factor. Those were the seeds that were planted to result in what we have going on today. So for those of you that are in tune with what Yahweh wants and his will, pray for peace, yes, but pray for love and pray that Yahweh's will be done in Israel, in New York, in Ishmael's descendants, in Isaac's descendants. Let's pray against racism in Israel and around the rest of the world. Racism doesn't just exist over here in America. It exists in every nation, unfortunately. We all need to come together and we need to pray. And we need to pray on ourselves.